Hey everybody, Gavin and I have been healing the past few days. Sorry that I haven't been able to record or give you a conversation around my sense and my sense around the Dr. Phil interview with Sandy Rzucek and her husband Frank and her son Frankie, and their incredible energy on camera and their brilliance with Dr. Phil. So what I wanted to talk about, I'm just going to move this over so I can sit with Gavin comfortably. Sorry, Mr. G. What I really wanted to talk about is this is just going to be completely off the cuff. And one of the things thank you, Gavin. I know I love you too. One of the things I really noticed right away with Sandy and her family is what an incredible woman she is, and what incredible pain this family is suffering, and the dignity of that grief, the dignity of really, so many of us, and I've gotten messages from people saying, it's over now, you need to drop it. And it's kind of like I responded to someone by saying, I think that you need to trust that I will drop this as I'm ready to drop this. And I feel the same way about all of us. When it is coming to a conclusion as it is now, there's a new part of it. And are we going to stick around for who Sandy and her family is calling us up to be? There's a couple things that came through in that interview that really hit me. And of course, being an intuitive and doing spiritual work as I do, when Sandy talked about Shanann coming through and feeling that feeling, like she just felt something go through her, and she pointed to her third eye, the vision, right? Psychic, sixth sense. That's the sixth chakra actually is your third eye chakra. And that is actually the one that we get our sense from. That's for me where we tap into the universal consciousness, right? So it's not like some woo-woo thing. It's actually, there's a consciousness we all experience. And I'm going to talk about this more in a video on my Patreon page about the consciousness and the 100th monkey, which is a different conversation. But a couple things I want to say to you about this is that Dr. Phil said, I do believe in the afterlife. And then Sandy started sharing about how she felt that feeling. And she pointed to her third eye, that intuition, that mother's intuition, that we will validate mother's intuition, but we don't always validate our own intuition. We have to label it something else to make it okay. And it's obvious to me, and I'm sure to many of you, that Sandy is a devout Catholic. She has a relationship with Jesus Christ. She has a relationship with God. This is her stand and who she is. And believing that, and I'm getting truth bumps as I tell you this, believing that we are here because God put us here is a really beautiful thing that I feel that she's giving us, is that idea that, she did not believe that it was up to her to take her former son-in-law's life. And, I want to say a couple things about this in terms of her feeling the Bella and Cece and Shanann all coming to her. And I have to be honest and tell all of you that I felt it. I believed her. And so what I want to say to all of you is, would you for 1 minute doubt that this woman had that powerful connection with her daughter and her 2 grandchildren, who she was closer to than, these are the women in her family. Think about this. The women in her family, that feminine was pulled out and just thrown away. And I want to just acknowledge her husband and her son, that these are men, they were on either side of her, flanking her, holding her energy, and their positioning was powerful to me as well. Seeing her husband to her right, okay, and through most of the interview, he was holding her hand. And there were times when she pulled away to make a point, but on the other side was her son. And I feel that whatever whatever Frank Jr., whatever Frankie went through in his past, this, you know, I'm getting truth bombs. I have to tell you, whatever has happened to these people has brought them forward as an incredible voice for not only for Shanann and Cece and Bella and Nico. That's not what it just is. This is about, these people are what we look at and what we don't have as an example of, you know, what does a functional family do? Functional people fight with each other. They argue. There's issues. You know, I always worry when people say, oh, we never disagree. I'm like, you know, because I think that you've got to have some kind of disagreement, even if it's not screaming and yelling, right? But I want to go back to Sandy and her intuition. And that's something I really loved about her conversation and who she was. And at the end, here's this woman, here's this mother who has been stripped of her daughter. And I can't even think about the grandchildren right now because it's like too painful for me. So give me a moment. But here's this woman who says, I want to work with other women who have missing children. I want to, you know, and I have to tell you that when I see somebody like this, they are stepping into the calling that, in a sense, you either believe or you don't, right? You either have a faith in something bigger than you. And you know what? You can call it God, you can call it Jesus, you can call it Fred. It really doesn't matter as long as it's something that is inspired and bringing the consciousness up. You know, when people talk about evil versus, you know, good, really it is about good is always going to bring the conscious conversation up. And for myself, I notice it. Like when my energy is lower, I'm lowering the energy of everybody around me. And I know you know that's true for you. But when we watched Sandy in her grief, and I don't know about you, I have to say she looked so beautiful to me and so empowered, because one of the things that happens in this energy of grief, obviously you've heard me say, grief is love without a place to go. And here's this woman who's not just like spilling her grief everywhere. She's bringing it in. She's praying. She's having these visitations that she needs from her grandchildren and from her daughter that will allow her to move into the next phase of her life. This is a woman who said to us on TV, I don't know if I want to go on. Like she, and I'm paraphrasing, that's not exactly what she said, but the concept of that and the truth and the honesty and the raw feelings. What an inspiration of how to be with one another. And I think that, you know, somebody said to me, oh gosh, you know, I'm not even going to watch your video because you're telling us we can't have opinions. No. What I am saying is don't be mean. Don't get on and go, you're a B, you're a this, you're a that. Troll by. So what I'm saying to you is that we look at these two families, okay, and I am going to bring up the Watts family, just in terms of look at the incredible pain this family is suffering. Now, please, I don't want to get into them. I don't want to curse them. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to illustrate the difference with how Sandy is this. And believe me, I'm not trying to make her a saint. She'd be looking at this and going, don't make me a saint. But what I'm saying is that, have you ever had like a breakup with somebody, or you've been in grief? I know when I lose a pet, I'm just, so I can't even imagine losing a child. I can't, like, plus your grandchildren. It's just beyond the beyond, okay? But have you ever found that you've looked at a friend who's going through grief or a tough time, and the stillness within, that stillness of grief allows us to be present because there's nothing else but the grief. When our feelings overtake us, and that's, you know, more second chakra energy, and I talk about the seventh chakra as being body energy within you, when we're in grief, there's no other thought in our head. We're not like going, I wonder what time I have to pick up groceries. Like grief is just so consuming. And the thing I want to say about that is, when Sandy talked about these children visiting her, her grandchildren, I was just like, thank you, Sandy. Because, in the times in my life when I've done readings, and I think I shared one of the videos I did, it's called For Melissa. It's on the channel. It's in the playlist somewhere. That video is about, I tell a story about a dead child who visited me during a reading. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because unless you're there in that moment, either with that person or if you're the person having that experience, there are naysayers who go, that's the devil, that's this, that's that. And it's like, how can you say that a visitation of love, when it comes out with this woman is now going to be able to go on because she feels peace because these children came to her, because she knows that they're with God, and she knows she'll see them again, not tomorrow, but in heaven time, it's like super short. For us, it's obviously a lifetime, but she knows she's going to see them again. That comfort that comes from that connection, that nobody ever really dies. They just change form. That feeling that we have when we're connected, no one can give that to you. It's something that, it's like when people say, oh, I love when someone dies, right? I don't love when someone dies, but when someone dies and people go, they'll always be with you, It's like, I look at the person and I go, no, he's dead and he can't call me. And thank you, but how many people did you lose in your life? And I just get into this upset, because I know what it's like. I've lost people I love. In fact, I've lost my family. So I understand what that's like to not have that. That doesn't mean that I'm going to understand the level of grief that this family has going on when the young man they loved, they welcomed him into their home. They brought him into this family unit. He was welcome, and he probably had more love than he knew what to do with pointed at him, because it's kind of like going, I don't know what to do with this. It's kind of like being in the desert and people giving you like loaves of bread when what you really need is just a cup of water. So it's kind of like you don't know what to do with what's being given you as well. So here's Chris Watts, who that family loved. And a lot of people have commented, and I want to make this very clear. A lot of people commented, how can Sandy say that they forgive him after what he did? Well, I want to be they love him. What I want to be very clear about is that conversation when the Rzuceks, when Sandy told the lawyer that they didn't hate Chris, that conversation was with the lawyer before Chris ever told the full story of what happened and how he tortured Bella. I'm sorry, the thing I want to say, and I don't want to get too much into him because I kind of feel like, it's just enough already with him. But one of the things that I think is very important in terms of my shifting my energy is because I got very sick. I got strep throat. I had bronchitis. I'm only a few days into my antibiotics. So, that and some good makeup, I look okay, but it's very stressful what this whole experience has been. And, a lot of the anger that's come out of a lot of us. And I think what I've been about, and what I think this is important to say, is that it's perfectly fine to be angry. Just don't be angry at me. Just don't be angry at someone. Be angry because of the circumstance. Be sad because of the circumstance. But we, as a collective witnessing, we really don't have anyone to be angry at. And that's what makes this so frustrating, is that, yes, we can all hate Chris Watts. Okay, that's, but I mean, and when I even said, he came across as very likable, people were like, how could you say he's likable? And it's like, wait a minute, I get it. So I'm sharing this for a reason, because how we relate to the issue is the issue. Bear with me. What do I mean by that? Well, so the upset right? When we're in upset, let's say, for example, we're very sad or we're kind of fed up with this, right? Because what's happened is we've taken this case and for some people, they don't have the capacity to complete it. They need to just cut you off and say, I'm not talking to you. Or, they don't have the capacity to go, inner peace, you know what? It's over. The journey of this part of it. And I think that when people do that, when they go, aren't you ever going to drop it? How we relate to the issue is the issue. So the relating to the issue of me talking about it, for example, as attacking me personally, that becomes the issue. The need to attack another person. It's not me. It's not they're attacking me. They could be attacking Frank if he's sitting here. They could be attacking anybody who's sitting here. It has nothing to do with the person we're attacking. It's the feelings. And I'm going to give you an example of that. And then I'm going to, I want to circle back to Sandy and what I see and send some blessings to the Rzucek family. Years ago, I would get really upset because my roommate, when I was in my 20s in New York, would always leave dishes in the sink. And I'd go, could you please do your dishes? Well, of course, he never did dishes. So one day I just got so mad, and I remember talking to somebody and I said, I'm going to kill him. These dishes are still in the sink. And the person looked at me and said, who's it bothering? What do you mean, who's it bothering? Me. And I said, well, if how you relate to this, how are you relating to this? If that's what's going on, what will change it? And I said, well, if I do the damn dishes. And they went, mm-hmm. So I just started doing the dishes. And you know what happened? There were less to do because he started doing his own cleanup because I stopped complaining about it. So one of the things I want to say is that the upset I felt inside had nothing to do with him. It was the upset about the dishes that gave me an excuse to express my upset. And I think the thing about Chris Watts and this entire case is for many of us, it was a clear thing. And it was a thing that I think we're craving in this world right now is the ability to come together again and to be one, to really, the cliche of loving each other, but being loving to one another. Even if we're having a hard time, to be able to say, you know what, I'm in pain today. And what I'm going to say is not toward you, but I'm in upset over. I don't like what you said. It was a trigger for me. Learning new ways to communicate. That's what it's about. It's about somebody said, what did she say? She said something like, I know you've said don't watch, if you're not going to watch the video, don't comment on it, but I'm only 18 minutes in and I can't watch another minute of you. And she went into what was wrong with me. And then another thing about, and she had some good stuff in there, I will say. There was some really good stuff in there. Problem is, she lost me at you are. Have you ever noticed that? If I sat down, think about this for a minute. And I was doing this I was teaching it in a card reading class. And I said, okay, so I'm going to show you the way to do this and the way not to do it. All right. I always suggest we never give advice because you sitting there right now, you have your own answer. You don't need me. You don't need anybody. You just need your relationship with God of your understanding. If that's Jesus, if that's God, if that's Ralph, it's whatever it is for you, higher power. There are so many ways to find that inner peace in you that is the goal. So if we come back to ourselves in that community, if we come back to that idea, we're going to have a very different experience. Card reading. So I was trying to explain to people how harmful and bad reps people will get because they give advice and they don't really hold the space for the other person. They're like, I don't get it. And so this one person pulled a card and said, well, I see that you're going to have this and this and this happen, and it's going to be happy and you'll be fine. And this person who was doing the reading was very intuitive. And I said, may I? And she said, yeah. I said, okay, guys, I'm going to show you what is destructive and what is very empowering. So I looked at the same spread and I said, okay, and I'm going to make up the person's name I was reading. I'm going to say Rebecca. Okay, Rebecca, here's the deal. You've got this, this, and this going on. It's going to be tough for you. This isn't going to be a fun time. I really think you should sell your house and move, because there's going to be problems in that house and it's not going to be good for you. And as I was watching the energy in the room go, it was deflating. Now, here's the thing. Was that helping her? Here's part two, the alternative. You know, Rebecca, I'm wanting to ask you if you feel confident and comfortable in that house. Yes, not so much. Okay, so let's take a look at what are some things that you've been thinking about that perhaps the energy is taking you toward. So what I'm seeing is that perhaps being in that house may not be the best thing for you energetically. And I also feel a sense of very deep sadness in that house. Is there something around that would be true for you? And she said, yes. My brother passed away in the house. My family left me the house. There's a whole thing. And she said, I just feel sad, but I feel obligated. And so, when I said that to her, notice how I'm saying she opened up, the story came out, and she said, and I don't know what to do. And I said, it sounds like you do, but I'm hearing hesitancy. Is that accurate? And she went, yes, it is accurate. And this is how I feel. And she was able to recognize for herself that it was important for her to move. One way of doing it was me telling her what to do. And the other way of doing it was her coming to that on her own, but validating what she was feeling. I wasn't telling her what to feel. And that's why I don't read for kids. I wasn't trying to tell her what she should be doing, because I think it's very damaging. Once, as any kind of intuitive, once you insinuate yourself in that person's reading, you become part of the problem. So what I'm saying here, and let's go back now to Sandy Rzucek, is that if you look at what she's been sharing with us, which was been so incredibly heartfelt and so beautiful, and when she said more than once the torture that Bella went through, and she even said we would have gladly taken them. I kept feeling like, he could have signed over his parental rights at any time. I kept feeling like, there will never be for her, or for any of us really, a completeness, a complete understanding of this man. Now, I think that is going to be best for some of the professionals to sort out. And the reason being, I think we're seeing a new kind of killer. And I think that's what has made this so stunning. And we're also seeing an incredibly powerful and strong and beautiful victim. We're seeing a family that is not allowing such evil to tear apart the love that has happened in that family. I'm getting truth bumps as I say this to you, because, that's how much that family is about love. Now, when I say that, I'm going to get a few people that go, well, whatever, she shouldn't be canonized. I know. And the reason I share this is because I know what the other side looks like. I know what the naysayers look like. And when I look at what we're getting from this family, and they're teaching us how to behave if we listen. Even Dr. Phil brought up Cindy Watts and how do you feel? Have you heard from them or whatever? And I'm not going to, say I remember every minute of the conversation. But, Sandy went, and she made a face, but it wasn't a face. It was more like, no, because for her, that doesn't matter. Because the thing is, she spoke her piece about it. In that letter that I read, she spoke about it. It's over. You know, this is what is most important. The way the Rzuceks, and even Frankie said it. He said, you know, when Sandy was talking about, I want to help women who've lost children, families with children who have been lost or murdered, and grandchildren. And Frankie said, and lupus survivors. And I love that Sandy, man, was she like the bomb diggity diggity? She turns around and she says, I need you to help me, Dr. Phil. I need you to help me. And I just loved that, because you know what? If it were reversed and Shanann was sitting there, she would have done the same thing. You know, I remember when my dad died, and right before he died, and I remember he was in the hospital, and I'd flown 3,000 miles to be with him in like 12 hours, you know. And it was just a crazy story, which I will tell sometime. But he was looking at me, and he was intubated, so he couldn't talk. And he's looking at me and like the I'm sorry eyes. And I said, don't give me the sorry eyes. And I said, if I were laying in that bed, where would you be? And he went like this, meaning when we love people, we will go to the end of the earth for them. And it means that love never dies. You see, there are those of us who have had loss that we have to make the decision at any given moment. We make the decision, is it going to destroy us? Or is the legacy we've been left going to make our lives and other lives better? Because I'm going to tell you something, only people who have been through the loss of a child really understand what it's like to lose a child. So even though I speak about loss and I speak about those things, I can't know what Sandy Rzucek is going through or her family. I'm not in that position, but I can empathically look at this and say, wow, you know, what an example of dignity and honor and ability to walk through what's been going on. And I want to say something really powerful about this faith. It never wavered. Do you notice that? Never wavered. Sandy, from the beginning, has been the matriarch. She has been the one that, you know, really just, you know, has blown me away. I want to say blown me away. It's like, I can't even say anything else about it. And I do want to just mention that the fact that her daughter came to her, and Bella and Cece came to her, Celeste, and they were all with her, and she held Nico, you know, that to me is why I don't do any kind of summoning of them. She has a faith and a power that brings that to her. You know, I work with people around developing their own intuition and kind of learning to have peace with themselves. Some people find it in other ways. Everybody finds their road. You know, my job is to make my job obsolete eventually. That's the idea, is that you have every answer in you. And I think we have a wonderful example in front of us with Sandy Rzucek, her husband Frank, how much he loved that little girl, his little girl, and those two little girls, his grandchildren. And Uncle Frankie, you know, I had an Uncle Frankie. And there's something magical about an Uncle Frankie. I'm going to say that I loved my Uncle Frankie. Yeah, he was a little bit rough around the edges. But you know what? I think that Frankie Rzucek is going to really find his footing. And I think that his calling is just about to open for him. And so I really want to take a moment. I'm getting truth bumps as I say this to you, and send wonderful, wonderful light to this family. And I am not declaring the memory over. I'm not declaring the idea of what happened over. I am always going to be open to new information about this case. I think what I am saying is that whatever did happen, we know that Chris Watts is a very, very bad liar. And we also know, and good too, we also know that in many ways, he starts to say like or when he's lying. So when you listen to those tapes, and eventually they'll be out so we all listen to them, you know, remember that this is someone that is completely destroyed. He's destroyed his own life. He's beyond a monster. I don't even know what to call him, and I can't really give him a name except, incarcerated. That's it. I do feel that there's another thing that I want to look at, which has nothing to do with them. It has to look at, and you'll probably see the video up, the connection that I see and the similarity between Jodi Arias and Nicole Kessinger. And I think we're going to look at that as well, because energetically, we need to look at these women and what happens to them as well. That said, before I go into the final thing, a couple things I want to just let you know. I do have a Patreon page now. I'm going to be doing some videos and just for that group. If you're interested, it's at the top of the page here. It is patreon.com/Tori Hartman. And I also want to request that you share this video with others, subscribe to the page. Please check out my event page on my website, torihartman.com/events. I will be traveling a lot coming up, and I hope to get to meet some of you on the road. And before I say adieu on this, I want to say that it has been a complete honor to see the dignity and the path that Sandy Rzucek has opened for all of us. Remember that we all pave our own path. And for someone like Cindy Watts, she's paved her path. And, you know, I think as we look ahead, we're going to see that the damage that's been done is going to become more and more clear to us. However, for now, one of the best things we can do is send love, send light to the Rzucek family. Please, if you think of it, jump on. I'm not sure, but I think Dr. Phil will have links on his website about how to help them. Please get involved. If you have lost a child, if you are in that position, please get in touch with them. And I am just blown away by how wonderful so many of you are to each other. And I want to just say that let's look at what's ahead for all of us. And I really would like to say that after watching this, so Dr. Phil, I really feel that the Rzuceks are going to be okay. And that was what I was most concerned about through all of it, that we couldn't really stop until I felt that they had found their path. And I don't ever want to close the book on Shanann Rzucek. I don't ever want to close the book on these children. I want to really look at what we're doing to honor them constantly. That doesn't mean I'll talk about it every time, but I may refer to it. And I am going to be looking at other cases as well. So I'm really glad you are all here. I'm just so blown away by just the love and the support I see for each other. Please remember, here on this channel, I encourage you to say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. And please remember not to attack anyone. If you attack people, the chances of you getting are pretty good. And I just want to say that it's best to keep the focus on yourself. The best way to do that is to say, this is triggering me, or I'm upset over this being said, and here's what's coming up for me. Totally fine stuff to say. Please remember that we are all just people crawling on that same path, and we're just trying to get along and survive it a little bit. All right, everyone, I love you a lot, and I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. And also, if you would, saying something, a wonderful takeaway that this case has taught you. If you would, just on the comments below, just what have you learned from Shanann, Bella, Cece? What's the gift that you've had in your life that has helped you uplift your life experience through this? And I know we'll be talking again. I will see you in the next video. Lots of love. Bye for now.